I never imagined that the dream of a bustling family could be sealed with a check. At 26, newly married to Keith, my steadfast 27-year-old partner, we had only just begun to explore life's uncharted adventures. Our plans, delicate and unscripted, never included the arrival of a child so soon. Yet, as the echo of our wedding laughter faded into routine, my parents' insistent wishes began to swell like an unstoppable tide. They craved the pitter-patter of little feet and envisioned a future overflowing with grandchildren. In an unexpected twist of familial enterprise, they offered me a sum, $30,000 in cold, hard cash, as a kind of down payment on their dream. Their proposition was as dazzling as it was disquieting, a golden promise that would soon tie our fates to a future we had never deliberately chosen. The proposition arrived like a fervent whisper in the early days of our marriage. My parents, retired and flush with the success of their lifelong business, began peppering me with talks of legacy and family. My older brother, now 30 and already a father to two exuberant little souls, had succumbed to their gentle coercion, while my younger sister, only 20 and still finding her own footing, seemed caught in their gravitational pull. When the subject of children surfaced at every family dinner, I tried to gently deflect their inquiries. But as months slipped by, their enthusiasm morphed into an unwavering pressure. One day, they confronted me with a blunt offer, "Don't worry about the expenses, we'll cover it all." They dangled a check before my eyes, promising that if I named a sum, they'd write it out immediately, provided that a grandchild graced their arms in the near future. It was a proposal that made practical sense in our modest world of sales commissions and insurance premiums, a pragmatic lifeline amid our modest earnings. And so, after some hesitant deliberation, I accepted their offer, the money promising to ease our future burdens and silence their ceaseless prodding. It wasn't long before fate decided to play its own hand. Though Keith and I had always agreed that children would come when the time was right, and not by design, life's mysterious currents soon swept us into parenthood. I discovered I was pregnant, a surprise that mingled joy with trepidation. As the months passed, the flutter of a heartbeat and the soft swell of my belly became tangible symbols of our new chapter. My parents' eyes shone with renewed excitement at the thought of finally holding their long-awaited grandchild. For a brief, hopeful moment, it seemed as though everything was right in the world. Then, on a day that began like any other, our fragile joy was shattered. Mere weeks after our son's birth, in a sterile hospital room filled with the persistent beeping of monitors and the crisp scent of antiseptic, we received a diagnosis that would forever alter our lives. Our tiny miracle had been marked by a rare autoimmune disorder, SID, a condition that cast an ominous shadow over his future. The news hit like a sledgehammer, and suddenly the wonder of his arrival was replaced by the relentless dread of uncertainty. With a critical stem cell transplant looming just weeks away, and Keith designated as the donor, the promise of a bright future seemed to waver under the weight of grim reality. Just as our world was tipping into chaos, my parents' demeanor transformed in an equally unexpected manner. Their previous excitement soured into something cold and calculating. One fateful afternoon, while Keith was away, they arrived at our door. Their eyes darted nervously, their smiles strained, as if burdened by a terrible secret. In halting, measured tones, they declared that the baby they had eagerly anticipated was not the miracle they'd envisioned. Their words, heavy with insinuation, demanded that I return the money they had so generously provided. They argued that with the slim possibility of our son surviving past his first birthday, the check was nothing more than a misguided investment, a purchase they now wished to reclaim. Stunned into silence, I could only muster a weak excuse about being overwhelmed before ushering them out, my heart pounding in disbelief at the betrayal. In that charged moment, every comforting notion of family felt like it had been dismantled piece by piece. Keith's return only deepened the dissonance. We sat together in silence, the remnants of his gentle concern mingling with a rising fury. How could the very people who once celebrated life now treat our son as if he were a defective product, a purchase subject to a refund? With bitter resolve, we decided that our child's future, and the mounting medical bills that accompanied it, could not be collateral for their shattered dreams. That evening, I blocked their numbers on every device, severing the digital umbilicus that had once connected us. It was a cold, necessary act of self-preservation, one that marked the beginning of a painful estrangement. Yet the fallout didn't stop at my parents' door. My younger sister, still tethered to the old ways by necessity and dependency, soon reached out. Her call was laced with accusations, her words sharp as broken glass. She chastised me for misleading our parents, accusing me of promising a healthy grandchild and then, with a cruel twist of fate, delivering a fragile, ill child. Her tirade, overflowing with resentment and blame, left me reeling. In that heated exchange, I realized that I could no longer afford the weight of their expectations. With a final, painful click, I blocked her too, feeling the loss of a sibling bond that once meant solace. Barely had the digital walls been erected when my parents made one more audacious attempt. Just 3 days later, they returned unannounced, this time with Keith at home. Their insistence at our doorstep was nearly surreal, a cacophony of angry shouts accusing me of theft, of having scammed them by accepting their money. They went as far as threatening to summon the police, hurling insults and venom in equal measure. In a moment of desperate resolve, I shut the door on them, their shouts echoing in the night as Keith's calm but firm ultimatum forced them to retreat. The confrontation left me numb, my home now a battleground for familial discord. The next day, the barrage continued, but not in person. My sister, using multiple phone numbers as if playing a sinister game of hide-and-seek, sent texts laden with blackmail and guilt. She accused me of being heartless and cruel, exploiting our parents' generosity and then reneging on my debt when the child did not meet their standards. I could hardly fathom the twisted logic that turned love into a ledger of debts. I argued silently that my parents were not impoverished souls clinging to hope, they were retired, successful, and more than capable of affording their own dreams. Their money had been offered freely, a gift steeped in expectation, not a commodity to be returned because the merchandise didn't perform as advertised. In the midst of this emotional maelstrom, I found a brief moment of refuge in a conversation with my older brother. His gentle yet firm voice, tempered by the responsibilities of his own young children, echoed my own disillusionment. He agreed, unhesitatingly, that our parents' demands were not only unreasonable but cruel. Yet, even as his support buoyed me, a part of me wondered if, in another world, returning the money might have smoothed the rough edges of our fractured family. But as I looked at the mounting hospital bills and the fragile hope embodied in my son's tiny hands, the answer was unequivocal: I could not, would not, return what was never truly mine. Update 1, in the grip of the storm. The weeks that followed blurred into a relentless cycle of hospital visits and whispered prayers. My son, our tiny warrior, underwent a grueling regimen of chemotherapy, a necessary prelude to the critical stem cell transplant that loomed just ahead. The sterile corridors of the hospital became my reluctant haven, punctuated by the rhythmic beep of machines and the cold touch of reality. Through it all, my parents' relentless harassment continued to gnaw at my already fragile state of mind. Despite the mounting chaos, I steered clear of legal battles. The idea of a police report added a layer of complexity I simply couldn't bear. Instead, I fortified my digital barricade, blocking them on every conceivable platform and clinging to the hope that silence would eventually prevail. Update 2, family fractures. A phone call from my brother shattered what little peace I had managed to salvage. He relayed that our parents, and, unbelievably, my estranged sister, had invaded his home in a moment of unchecked anger. His usually placid demeanor had given way to a torrent of reprimands so fierce that even his soft-spoken wife had to intervene. With a force that belied her gentle nature, she ushered them out, leaving no room for negotiation. In that moment, the stark division within our family became undeniable. While my brother and his small circle of supporters stood firm, my younger sister clung to our parents like a life raft, her loyalty born out of necessity more than love. The bitter irony was palpable: those who should have been our solace had become the architects of our despair. Meanwhile, Keith's anxiety deepened as the transplant day approached, his nerves frayed by the relentless stress that none of us could have anticipated. Update 3, Flickers of Light. 3 months have now passed since the life-altering transplant, and for the first time in what feels like an eternity, a glimmer of hope has emerged. My son's body, once as fragile as porcelain, has begun to show signs of resilience. The cautious smiles of doctors and the soft reassurance in their voices have offered us a tentative promise of recovery. Amid this hard-won progress, I've been forced to navigate a secondary battle, a restraining order against my parents and sister, whose continued harassment and cyberbullying had become intolerable. Their absence, though painful, now forms a protective barrier around our fragile sanctuary. We are still healing, still fighting, but for now, the storm is quieted enough for us to dare hope for brighter days. Update 4, a new chapter. More than a year has now slipped quietly into the past. Just last week, my son celebrated his first birthday, a milestone that once seemed like a distant fantasy. Today, he is a vibrant little force, defying the odds with each giggle and every tentative step. In the wake of his progress, our family has been irrevocably redefined. My parents and estranged sister have faded into the background, their voices silenced by the restraining order and the echo of their past transgressions. My true kin are now Keith, my steadfast partner, my brother and his loving family, whose support has been my rock, and, most importantly, my little son, whose every heartbeat is a testament to the fragile beauty of life. Their presence is all the warmth and love I now allow into my world. Reflections. As I sit in the quiet aftermath of these turbulent years, I find myself questioning the very nature of familial bonds. Can a promise made in the currency of money ever truly capture the essence of unconditional love? I have been labeled heartless by those who once claimed to be my family, yet I stand resolute in my conviction that no refund can ever replace the miracle of my child's life. I carry the scars of betrayal, yet also the hope forged in the crucible of adversity. Every sleepless night, every tear shed in the sterile glow of hospital lights, has led me here, to a place where I choose to honor the life before me rather than succumb to the corrosive demands of a past that no longer holds sway. The journey has been a tapestry of hope and heartbreak, of promises given and broken. And though the bitterness of betrayal still lingers like a stubborn shadow, I now embrace the truth: my son is not a product to be returned, but a vibrant soul fighting for every precious moment. As I move forward, armed with defiant hope, surrounded by those who truly stand by me, I dare to believe in the justice of a universe that, in its own mysterious way, balances the scales of love and loss. In the end, while some may call my choices unethical or callous, I remain steadfast. The money, offered in exchange for a dream that was never mine to barter, is a relic of a past steeped in unmet expectations. I will not return it, not when every dollar represents a battle fought for my child's life, not when it stands as a monument to the resilience of a family reborn from adversity. And so, with each sunrise that graces our small home, I choose to live for my son, for Keith, and for the love that has survived even the harshest of storms. Thank you for standing with us, for every prayer whispered in hope, and every word of support that has lit our path through darkness. The journey is far from over, but in our hearts, we know that the true worth of life cannot be measured in dollars. It is found in the courage to love, to fight, and ultimately, to survive. I discovered hidden wedding photos of my mom, and realized the groom wasn't my dad, uncovering a